The next question, of course, is how do we actually release the karma? There was a recent topic that I did for those that might have been here on the power of awareness, and I introduced this concept. And the understanding from that is that our true self, as I've mentioned, is consciousness or awareness. And one of the metaphors that's oftentimes used for our awareness or for that level, that aspect of our true consciousness, is that it's like the sun, that it is self-radiating, it's self-illuminating. And in that process, like the sun, it also produces heat and it's composed of fire. And so it is that part of our true nature, our awareness, our witnessing self, as I'll refer to it now, that the power of our awareness contains within it the element of purification that allows us to actually do authentic healing and sustain the process. And so one of the steps is to begin to cultivate our awareness, to cultivate the direct experience of ourselves as awareness. And in this case, one of the layers that's important is developing our capacity for witness. We also have a capacity of our true self that is also the dynamic experience of life. But we need to learn to develop our witnessing aspect in order for us to be able to effectively purify karma, to heal these patterns. Because what happens is when we sit with ourselves as awareness and we direct our awareness towards the experiences that are arising from the karmic patterns themselves, the sun, the heat element of our awareness as we're directing it, begins to roast away the karma, begins to purify and burn away the karmic pattern. But we have to be in the right state of being and state of awareness for it to actually work. And so this is potentially one reason why some people may struggle with some of the healing work they're doing, is that they remain stuck in the story of what it is that they're dealing with, and they have trouble getting out of the story, and therefore it can't truly resolve itself. So the witnessing aspect is really reconnecting with a natural part of what our true self is as consciousness and as awareness. And from a deeper perspective, when we're really anchored into our awareness as witness, there is no longer an attachment, there's no longer a judgment, there's no longer an aversion to what it is that we're experiencing. We're stepping back, like like being in the back of a movie theater and the movie's on the screen, like we know in that experience, like whatever we're watching on the movie screen, like, people getting shot, it's not going to kill me. I understand that, I recognize that. And so this witnessing layer starts to become similar in context or concept to that, which is I'm stepping back just enough that I am no longer like caught in the story of what it is that I'm experiencing. Instead, I'm seeing it and experiencing it for exactly what it is in the moment, as vibration, as a pattern, as experience that ultimately will not harm me in the end. And when we get into that space and we stop thinking of ourselves as being in the mix and in the story and doing the thing and having the attachment, at that point, it's able to dissolve itself. When we stay in the story, we keep the pattern alive because we're still identifying with it. We're still going through the actions of it and thinking of ourselves as being the doer of those actions. And so once we no longer have an attachment, a judgment, or aversion to it, then we finally become free from it. And so it's ultimately cultivating the deeper connection to our true self, finding a deeper space of peace, and then allowing ourselves to find acceptance and curiosity for the things that are arising in our experiences, rather than being caught in the story and struggling against things and chasing after things. And as we move into that space, not only are we cultivating a deeper direct experience of our true nature, but we're also opening the natural inner healing power that exists within our own consciousness that is the mechanism that actually does the karmic purification and frees us. So why all of this matters is that struggling against our karmic patterns actually strengthens them and keeps them alive. As you may have heard, one of the popular sayings in some healing circles is that what you resist persists. The thing that you don't want to look at, that you don't want to deal with, that you don't want to accept responsibility for, that you don't want to change, is the thing that's going to keep coming back in your face. Like that's where a lot of the recurring pattern comes from, is the resistance to actually dealing with the real thing that needs to happen, of wanting it to be different, or thinking that, or being stuck in the story of something's wrong with me or whatever. But so when what you resist persists, if we continue to not want to deal with it, to not want to address it, to not want to accept it as being the true experience of the moment, then it's going to continue to arise until we're able to let go of it and to move into a different relationship with it so that we can become free of it. So instead of beating ourselves up and thinking that we're doing it wrong, or some other story of blaming ourselves or blaming other people, we simply need to recognize that we're running an unhelpful program, that we are letting a karmic pattern provide an unhelpful strategy for us. And we address the karmic program as the cause, not me, not somebody else. We just address the karmic pattern as being the problem. And it's not a personal thing. It's just something that we need to be able to find a way to make peace with, to dissolve, and to shift. So we must shift to a perspective of acceptance while being curious about it, which is what I refer to as the witness state and what I described earlier. And we also need to accept the process of it being a journey that all of this is happening through, that each day, each moment, each second provides us with another opportunity to not only experience the fullness of our true essence and self and try to bring that authentic layer of ourselves into existence, but it's also opportunities, especially when we're triggered by something, to be able to, maybe at first we might get caught in the story, but to be able to eventually, or even in the moment, learn to step back and to recognize that it's a pattern, even in the moment. As we get better at this skill, we can evolve into being very present to what's actually happening, even when things are uncomfortable in the moment. And so as we become more accepting of this process, rather than expecting or hoping for quick fixes, then we're able to invite challenges and recurring patterns into awareness without resistance, knowing that they're going to dissolve and that we've made peace with them. And so there's a lot more that can be said about this. But for today, we're going to focus on just learning to create that proper state of the awareness to allow us to release the current layers of karma and play a little bit with the concepts of karma, so that maybe you can recognize sort of identifying them in our contemplative time. And then recognizing that when we shift towards self-acceptance to self-love and recognizing this as a process and a journey, that we can really relax into the flow and trust of the unfolding experiences instead of struggling against the patterns that we are being revealed, that are being revealed to be healed and to be removed. And one of the things that I really say and has become my increasing experience is to begin to think of all of the potential challenges that arise in our experiences of life as opportunities for us to become free, instead of thinking of them as being problems or challenges or those kinds of things, but to recognize that whether it's positive or whether it's negative in its initial appearance and its our initial assessment of it, that literally everything that's happening is for our freedom, for our growth, for our healing. And to be able to come into the flow of surrender of that unfolding process. And the more we're able to understand that and to experience life from that as our experience, as the deeper wisdom of our own experience, the easier the process gets. It's sort of a snowball effect. The more free we become, the easier it is to get more free. And so that becomes the unfolding process.